We're here today with Adam Tine. Adam is a music producer and a mixing engineer, currently based out of Houston, Texas. You might know his work through his collaborations with artists like Joe, Post Animal, Moon Panda, Ancient Cat Society, and a ton more. Adam's work with Joe on 2022's Decide LP was RIAA certified gold, I think, right?
I think the album is. I don't actually know.
I'm pretty positive. I looked this up.
Okay.
I'm gonna pretend I'm a professional here.
Yeah.
And End of Beginning, the single from that album, is certified triple platinum. Thank you so much for doing this, man, for taking the time.
Coming over.
Really excited to finally be in this space. I'm glad you got to show me around.
My tiny bedroom. Yeah,
we're here in this room, and you've got this thing treated up, dude.
Yeah.
I could tell immediately when we walked in, and I was like, oh man, this is like dialed, like very isolated sound.
A lot of absorption.
18 inches of bass trapped behind us, and then these are all nines, or
9 inches on all the walls and the ceiling. Pretty much, I don't think you could get any more treatment in this room
in this space,
unless I don't know, the floor.
Well,
I guess, but
I love it here, man.
You
You got to show me a couple of these choice pieces you have over here as well. How did you get started with music production and mixing, and which one came first?
I guess backing up a little bit, I was just a musician, like a bass player.
Okay. Bass was your first instrument?
Piano was my first instrument, and then when I turned 13, I was begged my dad, hey, can I please borrow your bass and learn how to play it? And he finally was like, okay. And then all throughout high school and into college, I was just playing bass all the time. And so it was my dream to tour as a bass player.
Right.
And at some point, I'd been in a bunch of bands, and at that time we were living in Madison, Wisconsin, and my friend Javi and I were starting a band together, and I thought I didn't really know anything about recording yet at that point. I hadn't really done much recording, and was looking at Craigslist, and there was a Tascam 4-track for sale for $50.
A cassette recorder?
Cassette recorder.
Hell yeah.
Came with 2 microphones. It was I don't know, some EV mic and something else, and I was just like, oh, let's just try. We've never done this before. We're just gonna.
What kind of music?
It was kind of it was sort of a jam band. Looking back at it, honestly, it's of indie jam rock.
And how old are you at this time?
Would have been 26 already.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd been.
So you didn't really start recording even in that kind of capacity of just trying to get your own stuff down until you're in halfway through your 20s.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it was always a super mystery to me how any of it worked.
Right.
I had done my dad is an audio engineer also. He had run live sound.
What?
He didn't do any recording. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he worked at the local casino.
Okay.
With all the
And this is in Madison, Wisconsin?
This was actually in Iowa, in Northeast Iowa.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up originally. And so he was also in a cover band in the 90s before DJs were a thing in the Midwest, I guess. It was you could make a living just playing cover shows 3 nights a week. So that's what he did.
Okay,
he and his brother were in a band, and they had all their own PA gear. So I grew up around
music,
live music stuff. So I knew a little bit about plugging mics in and using a mixing
You're
board.
peripherally kind of aware of all this stuff.
EQ, all the effects and stuff. I knew all about that a bit, and didn't really. Recording though was felt completely different.
Right.
And we also had kind of a weird upbringing in that I didn't have internet at home all through high school. I'm 38 now, so that was pretty late. Internet was definitely available, but my parents were like, "Oh no, we shouldn't have internet at home." So I missed out on I don't know. That I feel that really kept me back from looking into it. And I hear a lot of people my age were "Oh, we got a DAW pretty early and had an M box and we're doing stuff like that." I completely missed that. There was a short window of time where I had, I think my parents got me this as a gift. It was a digital Tascam recorder, and it only had 1 or 2 inputs, and it was I don't know if you've ever seen these things. They were terrible. I don't know who came up with this.
My first audio experience of my own was similar. we had it was a Fostex 8-track SD card recorder.
Yeah,
It was probably something very similar.
super similar. Yeah. And I just had a terrible time with that thing because it was like terrible user experience and
Hard punch-ins. You really have to do the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like all the worst parts about tape without any of the sonic benefits.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
It's like,
Yes.
yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Was there a little CD burner built in, or did you have to port the files off the SD? Yes.
It's like you had to get it connected to the computer.
Yes.
And then, but I messed around with that with a little bit, and that's what I thought recording was. So I was just like, no, I can't do this. Like, I'll leave that for other people. I'm just gonna keep playing.
So at this time that you're 26, you get the Tascam.
Yeah.
You start recording, but then you quickly phase out of it. You're like, this is
well,
or
the Tascam. This was like that was probably when I was like 18 or 17 when I got the digital recorder.
Okay.
And then I got the tape recorder, and I had Javi at the time, a friend. We were both just like, wow, that sounds way better than we thought it would.
Right.
We should like keep trying to do this.
Yeah.
So we were just recording for fun, and I think we had 6 channels, and I was using like, I dump it out of the like Tascam in through the headphone jack back into the little mic input on my laptop. Didn't even have an interface.
Right.
But it was really fun. Then I got Ableton sometime around then too, and started messing around with that. Yeah, it's weird to talk about. It feels like really late to start recording at like 26 or 27.
Well, you covered a lot of ground in that time, dude.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty impressive. I was just curious, kind of, and I feel like, well, how was the experience different? What was the thing that changed the perspective from the first iteration, like trying with the digital recorder versus the cassette recorder?
I think,
was it that you had music that you were stoked on, that you were like passionate to do, or was the user interface easier, or both? Or
I think it's both of those. So number one, it was more exciting because it was like, this was 6 or 7 years later, and it was like, oh, this music is really fun. And it was also like each channel had, like the digital one was like, had one input at a time kind of thing.
Right.
And this was like, you could plug everything in, just record it. You could just bounce it down and like kind of pre-mix and just commit it.
Yes.
And that to me was like, oh, like if we get it sounding good, then I don't have to do anything later.
Right.
It's funny to say that now and then like go think about ahead of all the like, oh, I gotta like pick everything apart. And now I'm like finally coming back around to like, let's make it sound good and then we'll just record it.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how things like, I feel like my perspective has shifted so many times in doing this for however long it's been now, where now I'm like back around to, just wanting things to feel more immediate, you know, like get the sounds that you're after in recording. Because there was a time where I was afraid to commit to anything, like no compression, no EQ, just set up the mics to the best of my ability, be like, that's kind of the sound. But I feel like that kind of leaves something to be desired a lot of times, or at least for me it did, where I would kind of have to almost explain like, well, it's not mixed yet. You know what I mean? Versus the feeling of having a client come back into the room on something you're working on and hearing the energy of a live drum kit with that processing versus just kind of flatter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I imagine like my impression of you is that you're super busy, and like I imagine like getting to a place where you can get like a final sounding thing as fast as possible is like to your benefit.
Of course.
So
and I feel like, over the years, it's one reason why I wanted to do this is I always feel like there's something to learn from another person's approach, but over the years and like talking with Steve and other guys who I always admired, that was something I always admired, but somehow I felt like not yet qualified to and then you just start trying stuff, you just start like acquiring some gear and then hitting the gear a little bit harder than maybe you're used to. And I could just hear things like open up, and then also, definitely make the process more streamlined going forward, because like at every point in the process I would ask the client like, how's it feeling, and they'd be so stoked. So if the raw tracks sound that good, then I have all this playroom to just make things sound more exciting or lean into the aesthetic of the band or whatever. Are keys now your primary instrument again? Did it ever go back and forth between bass and keys? Was it always keys?
So it was like that same time with that recording project. It was keys up until I was like 13. Then I still played piano and stuff, but mostly played bass. And then that band I was talking about in Madison, we made those recordings, and I had layered keyboard parts onto it, and then we wanted to play them live.
Right.
And suddenly I was like, oh, who's going to play keys?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'll stop playing bass.
Right.
Get our buddy Willie to play bass. I'll pick up the keys again.
Right.
And that's kind of when I got back into it. I guess it was like 27. But yeah, I guess as long as I've lived in Houston, especially, I've been a keys player.
Right.
That's not really completely how I identify, but it is now.
And then in terms of your production and the things that you might contribute to some of these records that we know, what all might you contribute in terms of like instrumentation and stuff like that?
Yeah, pretty much bass and keys, honestly. Yeah.
That's the wheelhouse.
That's the wheelhouse, yeah. And then like becoming more sound design stuff as time goes on. But that comes from like the synth stuff too.
Right.
Yeah.
Then so we're here in your room today, which is, like we were saying, treated. You have these beautiful PMC. You said these are the 6.2s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so jealous. They look so beautiful.
They're like way too big for this room, honestly. But
how does it feel? Is it pretty badass?
Yeah.
Is it fun to mix on them?
It's fun to mix. Yeah. They're like for me, I came from headphones. So
you were a headphone guy for some time.
Yeah, for most of like the time I've been mixing up until I got in here. So I guess I started mixing that same band's project in 2014, 2013. So I've been mixing since 2013.
Yeah.
And it was all headphones until 2 years ago when we moved in here. Yeah. So that was a difficult adjustment, honestly.
How I guess the broader question is like, how do you think, looking back on it and then now being in this more treated space with these really high-end monitors, how do you feel that like headphones shaped your process, or like how has it changed, or did the end result vary at all, or do you find that it's more about just like having a control that and you understood the frequency response of those headphones and how records you loved sounded on them? Do you find that it's more about understanding the medium that you're mixing on and translating accordingly, or have you noticed some improvement, or just curious about that?
Yeah, it's hard to know if I don't know if my mixes are any better on speakers, but I think I work faster is the main thing.
Nice.
I think with headphones, something I didn't know until I wasn't using them was it's sort of like having everything under a microscope all the time.
Right.
Like, where you're missing like the big, you could be missing something huge and not realize. Like balances are a lot easier. Like just getting a vocal balanced on speakers is way faster to me than headphones, where there's so much detail.
Probably, right?
What's that?
Almost especially vocals, I would imagine.
Yeah. Anything like that is dead center in the mix. Because in headphones, it's like you can get away with things in the middle being way softer than on speakers.
Right.
You know? And because there's like, you can pick things apart. So it's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but like, But
the immediacy of the monitors is really what translated to you. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah. It's sort of like, just like having a stereo image I trust a little bit better. And it translates a little better, you know, like, things are closer, like just balance-wise, not like taking frequency out of it.
Right.
It's just like volumes are relatively similar if I go to the car or even in headphones.
So the translation was smoother?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. But that took work, honestly. It took me some time because...
to just reassess and get used to?
Yeah. And I think these monitors, I kind of... didn't get to hear these until I bought them, or like they were shipped out here, and I was like, oh God, I hope this works. I had heard some other PMCs and kind of liked, they're like, I use these Odyssey headphones.
I want some so bad. Are those open back, closed back?
They're open back. These were the ones.
How do you like them?
I love them. I mean, I still use them all the time for editing.
So when you were mixing, were you mixing on the Odyssey?
since 2021.
Okay.
Before that, it was mostly the Audio Technica
Hell
M50X or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
So-
those are still my headphones just to check. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So, when you were mixing Decide, what were you mixing on?
It was these headphones, the
Okay.
Odyssey. I think
Awesome.
I had gotten that. So we worked on Decide. Decide was like a pandemic album that we
Yeah.
started like shortly into like lockdown,
Uh-huh.
and then finished in this. Hope I don't get this wrong. It was we went to a studio in LA called Sound Factory in 2021 and did some we recorded live drums in there, did some guitar and keyboard overdubs, and all the vocals were recorded there. And then we brought it home and I mixed it at home in the headphones.
Hell yeah. Well,
Yeah.
those are incredible headphones, though. What model of headphone is that?
LCDX.
Yeah.
They're-
I mean, my understanding is that those are as far as headphones go, it's about as accurate as you're going to
Well,
get.
yeah, I think here's what I'll say about headphones that I've since learned is like everybody's ears are completely different, especially with headphones, like because of our shape of our ears. There's something
Yes.
called HRTF. I don't actually know anything about this, but like the best way to like demonstrate this is if you should like take a couple friends and go try on a bunch of different headphones at like
Right.
a Micro Center somewhere.
Right.
And people will come up with completely different opinions about which one sounds the best.
Right.
And it's because our ears are shaped so differently. So
Right.
like to me
The
they might sound
sensitivity to
good
different frequency ranges
Exactly.
varies from person to person.
like pretty drastically, I
Right.
think. So it might sound flat to you and completely crazy
Right.
to me.
But you've acclimated, and I guess
yeah.
my broader point, this is what I was trying to get at, is, in working out of these studios like Sound Factory or Electric Lady in New York City and stuff like that, and being in these rooms that are world-class facilities, and then, mixing on something as minimal as the Audio Technicas to the Odyssey there, to these PMCs, how much do you, I think a lot of times when people are starting out, they think, I have to have these nice speakers and I have to have all this treatment, or maybe they start out on headphones and then they're conscious of wanting to move to monitors, but there's all these barriers to entry.
Yeah.
And so my thought is kind of, how much do you think that stuff really matters, or is it really more about knowing your environment or knowing the system that you're mixing on and how the records that you know and love translate to them?
Yeah. I mean,
For you.
for me, like I'm sure all the gear matters in some way, but
Right.
what matters the most to me is like I should have just started sooner. Like if anybody's watching this later and
Yeah.
is like take something away from this, just like if there's something you want to do, just start doing it, because the sooner you start, like the sooner you'll get to 10 years into doing that thing and
Right.
you'll actually have some skills by that point. Like
Right.
I think I
Don't concern
ruminated-
yourself necessarily
Yeah.
with the barrier to entry or
Exactly.
the perfection of your room, or
Totally.
I need these $1,200 headphones. Just
Or-
get into it.
or I need to make music with this person, or I wish I had this type of collaborator. Like literally just like
right.
whatever, if it's just you and you have laptop speakers, like just start doing something.
Right. And there's something to be gleaned from every part of that process.
Yeah.
And the sooner you get to it, the sooner
Yeah.
the result will improve.
If I could go back and tell myself just get going, like
Right.
it took for me, like I wasn't very good at mixing and I still don't think I am, but like
Dude.
it wasn't until the pandemic started and I was home and I was at that time delivering cookies to I was like driving for Tiff's Treats as a courier. Tiff's Treats is like a cookie gift shop. And
Yeah.
then it was like, okay, well, I don't want to get COVID, so I can't deliver cookies to random strangers' houses anymore. So I was like, hey, Carolina, do you think I'm going to maybe just like stay home and give this a shot? Like,
Wait, so you said 2021, 2022?
that would have been 2020 when that
So
happened.
2020, you're delivering
Cookies, yeah.
Tiff's Treats.
we'd been
and
here
then
for like a year.
2020, so you decide that because of COVID, that's out.
Yeah.
And so just 2022 to now, so much has changed for you.
Yeah,
What I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, I had met Joe and I'd mixed for him remotely on his first album. Then we would have done that in 2018. So it wasn't like I had never. It was like, but I still had a full-time job.
Right.
So it wasn't until the pandemic started where I was like, I'm going to try and do music full-time.
Right.
It was always like
That's a big shift.
It's a huge shift, and it was a scary shift. You know?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I think for anybody that is a freelancer in anything, like the moment where you're like, oh, I'm actually going to do this now.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a go.
Terrifying.
It is.
You're like, well, there's no, nobody. For me, we were broke, and I had,
Yes.
it was just like, well, it's better than maybe dying from a disease we don't know anything about at the time.
Totally.
So it's like, well, let's just, if I can't make rent, Carolina offered like, I'll cover like a month of rent for you, like your half of rent for if it, and then you can find a job again.
And then
I didn't
how
have to go
quickly
back.
did things transition into, like, what was that first month like? Did you make it?
I made it. Yeah. I luckily haven't not made rent yet for a month. So,
but so right away, just how do you transition from doing this kind of part-time to did you just kind of reach out to those collaborators you already had and said like, hey, I think I'm going to be doing this more full-time. If you need anything, holler at me, kind of a thing?
And like for dirt cheap,
right?
And everybody, it was like kind of so I'd already gotten some experience with working remotely in the past, like before the pandemic. Like Joe and I mixed his first album remotely. He was in LA and we were at, I guess, where was I? In Eugene, when we were living in Eugene. So we were working remotely already. I was like comfortable doing Zoom mixing sessions and stuff. And like when the pandemic started, like that was all stuff I'd done before, you know? And a lot of people were like, oh shit, like how am I gonna...
You were already kind of keen on where this was going.
Yes, exactly.
Just through happenstance, really.
And then and we've moved around a ton, like Houston, we've been here for 7 years, but before that we moved 4 times or 5 times, I think. So I'd made friends who were musicians from playing, like, and a lot of them had their own music, and it's like, I'm sure, it's like word of mouth stuff.
Yes.
So like somebody's like, oh, we're all stuck inside at the beginning of the pandemic. Right. Where everybody started recording at home. And I was like, oh, I can mix your home recorded crazy thing, Logic drums. So yeah, it kind of like became sustainable pretty quickly,
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. It wasn't like,
you got by.
I got by.
Yeah, dude. I mean, for the first many years of me doing this, I think that's another thing, and I don't know if you feel this way, and this is something I wanted to ask you as well, is like, when I just made the decision to start my own business, we gambled every dollar that we had, which was like maybe $10,000 or something like that, to get a few more choice pieces of equipment to like, my thought was like, God, I'm taking clients from this like $1 million facility that's like painstakingly designed from the ground up to be a studio to my bedroom at my parents' house. I'm going to charge $10 less an hour because they were my clients that I had built up at this time or whatever. Yeah. But that risk was so significant. Yeah. But I felt like the reward matched, in terms of my being able to choose what I wanted to work on and being able to actually work less and make more money and stuff like that. How did that kind of upping the ante, like, did you find that I guess it did. It kind of met you halfway. Yeah.
Very lucky that it did. I mean, I had, I feel like, I think to go back to what I was saying earlier, is like telling myself I should have started sooner, was just like, once you're doing it full time, you like get so much better, so much faster.
Oh, of course, yeah.
If it's like your entire day. One thing I didn't anticipate, but now it's like obvious, is like I ended up working way more. Just like the amount of hours you got to put in to be your own business.
Totally.
It's like
100%.
You're going to give more
client outreach. Yeah, the whole nine.
Like last minute revisions on things at weird times. Or, it's a pretty demanding lifestyle, but it's awesome to also pick and choose when you get to that place where you're like, yes, I want to do that a lot. I'm going to do that.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's amazing, man. And then I feel like your mixes and your approach to mixing is really identifiable in terms of like a certain sonic quality this is me kind of just listening through a number of the examples you have on your website of some of your work. There's a clarity in the imaging. I would describe the mixes as like big depth, width, and like huge dynamic mixes. Are there any records that you feel informed your approach to mixing or that approach that maybe I'm describing? What are some of the albums that made you interested in like record making?
Oh, that's a great question. When I think about like formative college albums, there's like Spoon records that would have been really influential. And I feel like I wish I could make things sound like Spoon records. And
those records are incredible.
Yeah,
Did you ever get a chance to go to Public Hi-Fi?
No.
Oh man, that was a beautiful studio. Jim Eno had that studio in Austin for some years, but now I think it's in Providence now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And I've been reflecting on this a little bit recently, and my first job ever was working at a country music station, like Top 40 Country. This would have been like early 2000s. And honestly, I think hearing my mixes and then listening to like country from that time, I was like, oh, ooh, that like got into my subconscious a little bit. Like all the like the clarity and stuff, I feel like is sort of like that early, Top 40 country radio kind of
That's
thing.
incredible. That's so funny. But that was shaped by your real life experience of
being at this radio station and hearing it all the time. It wasn't something I was like seeking out, but I was like, oh, there's a lot of that. Like, I don't know. I mean, and also just like classic records. There's a lot of Motown in my parents' car, like driving around everywhere. And my parents were both into like classic rock, so kind of like late 70s, early 80s stuff was huge for me. But I don't think my work sounds at all like that. So it's probably closer to like, the cheesy early 2000s top 40
I love that
stuff.
so much. And so like at this time, were you a little deeper into working on your own stuff to the point where, or I guess what I'm interested in is like there's an overlap between you doing this stuff, you're at the radio station, and that's when the thought occurs to you that like, well, my stuff doesn't sound quite like that. Is that kind of how this happened?
No. This was like, that was much earlier. I was like a teenager before any recording stuff. I just think now
the clarity
back,
of
I was
it.
like, oh,
I see.
Some of my like EQ tendencies might have come from
That's
like
so funny. That's so interesting.
Listening to all this stuff.
Has that occurred to you before I'm asking you, or is this something that
I realized it like maybe a couple months ago. I heard some like some old country,
what occurred to you?
I don't know, like Reba McEntire, and I was like, oh, I remember this song. I still remember all the lyrics to this.
I love that.
I must have absorbed this a little too much.
And then, is referencing existing work of an artist or those records that you did find influential in terms of production or mixing something that's a part of your process, or is the world that you're building for that particular record you're working on kind of informing more of those choices in terms of leveling, depth, width, and how big the dynamics should be?
Yeah. I think it used to be
passing stuff back and forth kind of a part of it, or?
Yeah. I think like with Joe's stuff in particular, I could talk about like Joe. This is something I'd love to ask you about too. Is like, I'm having a bit of a crisis right now where I don't listen to a lot of music outside of what I'm working on.
Same.
I've talked to Steve about this too.
He kind of illuminated it for me. I didn't even realize that had kind of happened to me. I was like, oh my God, I only listen to podcasts.
Yeah. And so part of that is like, that goes into like record making. Joe, for his records, he's definitely way more adventurous in listening to things, and he'll be into something, and take inspiration from it, and we'll talk about it, and we'll maybe like listen to it, and then, but it's never like, I've kind of stopped referencing like have something open and kind of go back and forth.
Right.
Which when I was learning early on, that was all the time, was like constantly referencing, which I think it was super helpful to like try and learn what the hell was going on.
Hear the distinctions and find what you found flattering about those distinctions, or maybe not so much. And then
or just like, like how the hell did they make that
achieve
sound?
that sound?
Yeah. And, just trying to get as close as you could with whatever.
Well, I also mean, even not so much in terms of something to check against, but like I feel like a big part of, I think, what I'm attempting to describe with your stuff is kind of a world building thing. And I think you talked a little bit about this on an interview you did with Joe about the record,
Mm.
about world building and that kind of a thing. Like, when you're in, or I guess when you're doing pre-production and then through the process, is that musical conversation part of that process? Like, this is what I'm listening to right now. I love this snare sound. Like, I feel like this could be sick for this particular song. Or maybe you are listening, or maybe Joe or another artist you're collaborating with is like, man, this is what I'm into right now. And then maybe you hear that and think about the way that some of that sonic identity might be imparted on this world that you're building.
Totally. Yeah.
So stuff like that, less so the referencing against mixes and more so like vibe establishment.
Totally. Yeah, that's definitely happening throughout. A lot of these like Joe stuff, it takes years to get an album done.
Right.
In part because he's been acting also alongside of it. So there'll be these huge gaps of like 5 months where we won't work on anything.
Right.
And during those times, that's kind of like when we're not actively working on stuff, that's when like the go-between happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's happening without me even realizing it. We were just at a wedding last weekend of our mutual friend, and people were dancing, and I'm like listening to the songs they're playing, and I'm like, oh yeah, listen to the kick drum on this one, it smacks so hard, like stuff like that all the time. Like, what is this? So that's happening again for like, what are we going to do next? Because a big thing with him is also never wanting to do the same thing twice.
Right.
Like all of his albums sound so different.
Right.
So now it's like, okay, well, what do we do now?
Right. That's what I was curious about too, is like how on those records that you're producing, how involved is the pre-production and stuff like that? Like, are those conversations ongoing? Maybe not just with Joe, but also just with all of your collaborators, these bands and artists that we know you've worked with. What does that process look like? Is it pretty conversational in that way where, as one thing is wrapping up, or maybe as the artist is gearing up to this next creative phase, like, are you dialoguing with them about like what, sonics you might be after and that kind of a thing?
Not
or
honestly,
does it happen
so
more
much.
in
It's
the process?
kind of like when we start, really. Like,
right.
Thinking about like the role I usually play for people is like somewhere after, like I work with a lot of people that are kind of self-sufficient. I feel like would be a good way to describe it, where they're making their own recordings and then they are like need help like finishing them.
Yes.
Even with
100%.
Joe, this is how it started. So it's like a lot of times I'm not even involved in any sort of pre-production stuff. It's sort of like things are already happening.
Right.
They're
It's
sort
in
of
motion.
defining. Yeah.
And you're almost brought in to kind of clarify that artistic intention kind of thing.
Yeah. Or just like I feel like part of my job is just making people feel better about what they sound like.
Yeah.
I don't, and we're like helping them.
I think that's a good point, man. I
take
think that's
things
kind
further,
of lost on some of the process these days. Is like we are meant to be. Like, there's obviously a bedside manner to engineering or production and stuff, but I feel like I love producers who are engaging in that way and enthusiastic about the stuff, and to the extent that they're stoked when you're achieving that sound and there's an excitement about what's happening, to where I feel like in those instances where maybe the sound isn't quite there, it's easier to communicate that when you've been a cheerleader, throughout and been like, no, dude, this does sound fucking sick.
Yeah.
It's not just all criticism.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with some producers where it can feel very like, I'm big bro, like you're little bro, let's establish this off rip, and then like I'm gonna kind of tell you what I think it should be. And I feel like, in my experience, in working with people like that and then working with people like in the way that you're describing now, the comfort level is so critical. And I feel like having that enthusiasm or that, like you're saying, giving that reassurance that like, no, dude, this is sick. I like where this is going, is so useful in a creative environment,
Yeah, I feel like it's always at like a different point with every different artist you're working with, where like Joe and I, having worked together for so long, it's like we are really direct with each other. If it's like, oh, this is working, nah, we need to do that again. Like, we've re-recorded the same parts like 4 or 5 times, trying different things, or like, and it takes a while to get there. Obviously, it's like with younger or people that I work with for the first time, there's always this like, what are the boundaries?
The feeling out period.
Yeah.
Totally.
I don't want to you don't want to upset anybody, but you also like want to like be able to say, we need to get a better
Right, like how's this
version of
feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. This is something I really wanted to ask you about. The choices you make in terms of production, in terms of additions to arrangements and song structure seem to be really carefully considered. To me, it's very precise and tasteful. And I feel like there are tons of examples in this with your work with Joe. I describe a lot of this stuff as like ear candy, like sometimes things that only happen one time and don't happen again. Do those kinds of sonic contributions or those kinds of ear candy, is that something that was like studied in records that you love, or is it something that just occurred to you naturally to do? Or like that kind of, I feel like it's very carefully considered little additions that are so tasteful. Like, what do you attribute that to?
That I don't really know. I know I get
It
a lot
occurs
of
to
it
you naturally
from,
to do that, though?
I guess so. Yeah, maybe just like being an impatient person or something, where I'm just like, oh, I wish there was something else happening. Plus,
Right.
like I was talking about, Joe and I work so slowly that it's, like if you've been working on something for like in your own music like 6 or 7 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, you come back to it and you're like, that isn't as cool as I thought it was. Let's add something else to it. I feel like it comes from that place of like wanting to constantly tweak
and that newness and freshness of adding one more little thing. And these are small little very small little, sometimes it was in transition. And sometimes it was based around the theme of the song, and I want to ask you about that as well. But I was just curious about that. Because it feels so refined.
I feel like, especially with Joe and I, we've been sort of like trying to learn how to like dial it back a little bit, like, because we're both
just let this like song, the root of the thing, be more focal point.
Or just like thinking about if it's in the way of anything else. I think that's something when I started like overproducing things, and maybe I'm probably still somewhere on the overproduction side of things, where it's like,
I don't think
you got to just let things breathe a little bit. And that's something I've been working toward, is like letting just the lyric and the vocal kind of carry more of the attention of the song and not go too crazy.
So this, what I am calling this very carefully considered, these very tasteful additions at one point where maybe more maximalist.
Exactly.
And you kind of have landed at a place where, that was really my broader question, was like, I feel like that's such it's an identifiable, it's a unique thing, and I loved all those little moments that you were creating, and I was just curious if that was something that you had developed over time, or if it was something that was always there, that curiosity of what might be compelling for this particular song or whatever.
Honestly, I think I get a lot of that from Joe, and he's like an overactive creative person sometimes, like, and so many of his ideas work, so it's just like, let's try it on, as long as it's not in the middle of the vocal, and then let's leave it in there. Sure.
And kind of piggybacking off of that, there was a production element that you noted in your interview on the Tape Notes podcast, this one I've been referencing, which was a killer interview, by the way. I really enjoyed that. Where you had used a sample to jolt or offset the listener, and it was a song about fear. And I was curious, how much does the theme of the song weigh in terms of how maximalist that kind of approach might be, or how heavily considered is the theme when you're adding these sprinkles of very tasteful kind of production contribution?
Hopefully now, like, it needs to make sense with what the song is about. You know what I mean? It's definitely like a priority. Sometimes happy accidents happen, but like, usually it's like trying to find stuff that enhances the meaning of the song, or even if it's like
so nothing's just there to be tossed in. On your side, it's more, how's this adding up to the narrative that you're getting across?
I had a music professor in college. I just remembered something he said, or like, not a quote, but basically I took one of his classes and thought he was such a hard ass because he was always like forcing everyone to explain why they did stuff.
Right.
And he just wanted to like drive home. There should always be like intentionality behind your decisions.
Yeah.
So like now looking back at that, I'm like, good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good piece
At the
of
time,
advice.
were you more resistant?
For sure. It was just like, why do I have to like explain? I
Right.
don't know why I did that.
Right.
you
It's
know?
a feeling, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've kind of touched on this a little bit as we've been talking, but I feel like the musical relationship between the producer and the artist is obviously really crucial. But how much do you think the personal dynamic that you have with the person you're collaborating with affects the process? And do you feel like a certain closeness outside of the music contributes to the quality of the record making that you're doing?
Totally. Like 100%. I think, yeah. I mean, most everyone that I've ever worked with it's been a good vibe, and like, but it's like the people that you tend to build with are like, obviously you're going to be friendly with them.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. It's like, it's sort of it's like finding a bandmate or something, I feel like
Totally.
I think of like production for myself as like, I'm kind of like, I've heard someone else say this too, where I'm going to join your band for a short amount of time.
Exactly.
And like, be involved with your whole life and your whole world of making music,
Totally.
So I think it's, especially now that I'm in a place where I can be pretty picky about what things I work on, I want to make sure it's like a good vibe,
Yeah.
Don't really, life is too short to like be working with assholes. So,
Totally.
Yeah.
And I feel like that closeness, like you were describing, in working with someone for an extended period of time, the ability to say what's felt without that reservation, and that closeness and the quality of the relationship, for me, has improved my work, I feel like, so immensely, because when I was younger, I feel like, for whatever reason, I, was extremely opinionated and not very keen on like necessarily, if an artist described something to me that didn't quite feel right, if they couldn't articulate it in a way that technically made sense to me from an audio engineering perspective, I would find some way around, or just be like, no, like we can't do that, like that'll overcompress or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I feel like over time that shifted for me so dramatically, almost the exact opposite, where like, an artist may be trying to convey something artistically that maybe is something that is not adding up in terms of how they're technically trying to describe it, but there's a thought there that this could improve, mm-hmm. and then I could make it better if I just tried,
Yeah.
But I feel like that closeness and the proximity to that person, the kind of personal relationship you have, has helped me so much in lowering my guard and also being willing to try new things, whatever they're compelled by. And then also the ease of just being able to say like, man, that sounds fucking awesome, I think we just leave it. Or like, no, we should try that. Like, that would be cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was curious about that in your own work. So you've worked with Joe on Decide and The Crux, and you've noted that you've been collaborating for many years now. How did you build that relationship? And I feel like so many fans of Joe and your work would describe this as kind of like what seems like a pretty perfect pairing. Yeah, how did you develop that relationship? And is there any advice that you might have for aspiring engineers or producers to foster that kind of environment where that relationship can happen, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it helps that we're just like, Joe's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
when
yeah.
we first met and started working together, it felt very easy. And it was like, it's sort of like sometimes your musical intuitions align with certain people.
Right.
Like, and your taste kind of lines up or overlaps in a big way.
Right.
I think we just got lucky early with that, and just had like a good
Rapport
from the beginning.
Right.
And then you just keep building on that, and trust comes eventually. And then, like the first stuff we worked on, we had met each other through Post Animal in my band in Madison called Dolores at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We had mutual friends. We played a show together, and that's when I first met him before Stranger Things and everything.
Right.
And it was not until later Post Animal was working on a release, their first like full length, and they asked for my help with some editing, and they were shopping around, and so I did like some faux masters for them for labels to listen to.
Yeah.
And Joe like remembered that I had been the person that like they reached out to, and you know, when he had his own, he had recorded his first album when he was shooting Stranger Things just by himself with a laptop and stuff, and he sent it to me, and I was like, whoa, these songs are pretty good.
Right.
Like, you should definitely like record some real drums. There was all like programmed drums and stuff.
Right.
So I kind of like pushed him a little bit to like work on it more.
Yeah.
I think maybe that in part was like, and it turned out, you know, pretty well.
Right.
And once that like worked, you know, and then we tried to like perform the songs live, and I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, it worked at the beginning, so it just kept working. And growing. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of what I take from that is you were enthusiastic about the songs, and y'all had that shared sensibility to where it was this natural fit. Was that always, or was that something as you're starting out or as you're transitioning into this time where things are more full-time, and I'm not sure where that first record falls, but was that something you were considering like initially or over time, that like, or were you just starting to work on whatever you was available, and then you found those collaborators where you're like, man, I feel like my sound and the sound that you're after just match up?
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
was it something that was considered, or did those collaborations with these bands like, or artists like Moon Panda and Joe and Post Animal or Ancient Cat Society, like, how did that come together?
Yeah, I got really lucky with just meeting some friends, and that led to me meeting Joe. Once I worked on Joe's album,
Right.
then that got some attention online, or people were like, "Oh, who's this name on this thing?"
Right.
Like, so all the work I got early on was people reaching out based on
This thing that you were particularly excited about and proud of. And stuff. Yeah, that's an amazing little trajectory, dude.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Super lucky, and you know, like it let me, like I did a bunch of work with. I said yes to literally everything that came my way in the beginning. You know, when that was before I was full time, even.
Right.
Like anyone that reached out, I'd be like, yeah,
totally,
sure, let's try.
Yeah.
You know, and like as things go on, you know, I've gotten way more selective, and usually like I just met some people a couple days ago who had reached out, and the first thing I do now is like, let's set up a Zoom call.
Yes.
Or if they're here locally, let's go hang out.
Totally.
Something unrelated to music, you know?
Yeah.
And just like feel out who they are as people first.
100%.
And then if it's like, oh, all right,
you got
everybody's
a good vibe
cool,
going, good gel,
and the music is like
something you're
awesome.
stoked on.
Exactly. Then. So it's got to be both of those things. Like, I'm sure you've had phone calls or met people and been like, oh, I don't think
like maybe
this is
I'm just
work.
not the best fit.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like,
totally.
Or yeah, exactly. There's probably somebody that's a better fit for them, style wise, or you know, they're at a different point in their
or sensibility just might not match up. Or
where like, or for me, it's always like, do I feel like I can be honest with this person and like they're gonna take feedback, or am I going to be open to their feedback?
Yes, totally.
So
it seems like just from what you're you know, that this story is pretty incredible, that you really just started hitting this hard like 5 years ago, and so much has happened. And I want to eventually get to what you might attribute that to, this kind of growth. But I feel like part of what I'm kind of gleaning from this conversation is just be willing to try, you know, initially just do whatever you can, you know, in terms of like, you know, a big reason or a big motivator for me in doing this was sometimes I'll get, you know, young people who are interested in this stuff and being like, how do you, you know, how do you start or whatever? Like my buddy, our mutual buddy Siege, when they were starting their studio, I was like, dude, you just start, you know, just throw your hat in the ring, just say like, I'm interested in mixing and record making, and if you want to like have someone mix or help produce your stuff, and it's worked out so well for CJ, obviously worked out so well for you, and I feel like that's such an important reminder that just anything can happen if you try, and nothing can happen if you don't.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that it's just interesting kind of to hear that perspective. I had no idea that so much of this had happened so fast. And then the second kind of my final question is, you know, in having these pretty significant shifts in your life, is there any one thing that you attribute that to? Like, was it that willingness to just take the gamble and take the leap and try, or was it the just natural kind of finding of those collaborators that resonated with you and you resonated with them? What do you attribute that kind of breakthrough success to? You know what I mean?
I just wrapped up touring with Joe, and it's like all the guys in his band and the opening band, those are the same people I met, like Javi, who I mentioned earlier, in Madison. Like, I've known him since we met each other in Minneapolis in 2011, and we still, you know, it's just like, I guess I'd say, like, build something with the people around you, and you never know, like, where it's going to end up. Yeah, you know, like,
that's
years
incredible.
later now, we're both touring the world together, and like, we didn't expect
Javi is in Joe's band.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing, dude.
Yeah, and Ted too, who was also in that band. So
what?
like, it's just like, everybody grows together, you know. So like, build something with the people around you.
Right.
I feel like I'm guilty of this, where you're just like, when you're starting out and you're just like, oh, I wish I had that client, or, you know, that thing.
Totally,
it's like,
dude.
The people who are just starting where you're at now are going to be the people that you wish you could be working with later, you know? So just build it from
what's around you, what's natural, those things that come in.
And being stubborn, you know, just like not giving up, or being a little bit stupid.
Totally,
so, totally. You have to kind of be
persistent.
Yeah, persistent, and, you know, things are going to keep changing. I'm sure, like, we had,
of course,
not to open up the whole AI can of worms, but like, we're all going to be, things are going to keep changing, and they did for the generations that came
tape
before us. Yeah,
Pro Tools.
So I think we're all, you know, the thing that, like, a piece of advice I got from Steve is like, oh, your clients are going to age with you, man. Like, because I was like worried about, like, you know, new musicians are young people. I don't want to be like 65, like, hey kids.
Right.
So, but yeah.
Like Steve Buscemi in that one movie. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I think that's fucking incredible advice. I think so many times we focus on those things that we don't have access to instead of those things that we do. And I feel like, you just kind of blew my mind with, it just confirmed something which I have felt for so long. It was one of the main reasons why I opened my studio, was that, you know, the first time I talked to Steve and hearing about these records, the Khruangbin record or the Steve Earle record, that those were passion projects for him, you know what I mean? And that they just happened to go, you know, and that's what I'm interested in, you know, more so than, you know, it's cool to have some credits on major label stuff or whatever, but you never know what you might miss out on, of what's around you, you know, what can happen.
Yeah, and like, my perspective of what you've done, you've built like a huge community in Houston.
Thank you.
You know, it's like amazing to see, and like, it's like, I feel like it's only a matter of time where something completely blows up.
Well, man, I am
having, as someone who's had something blow up randomly, it could happen at any time on anything you've ever worked on.
That's the other thing. I think this is a good way to kind of wrap it up, is like, that drive to, it's the same thing you were saying earlier. The sooner you start, the sooner you get to the 10 years, the 10,000 hours thing. But the showing up every day, wanting to do your best work, and that you never fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, there were times where I have met someone and written them off because I felt like I was maybe more musically capable at this time or whatever, and then you see that same person put the work in or more. In 5 years, they're a different fucking person, and you're like, God, now I don't have access to them in the same way because I was a fucking dickhead, and I was closed-minded and presumptuous or whatever, you know? And I feel like that's such an important lesson, is not only like to start and to try, but also to keep trying, because you never know, like, the person you just met this song that you're working on might be the thing that becomes some kind of a breakthrough. And it's like, because of your not knowing that, are you going to maybe show up less and then later be like, man, I could have done even more? Or are you going to just do your best?
Yeah.
And that thing, regardless if it goes
Yeah.
or blows up or whatever, it's like, you know, you did your best work. And that's really where I'm at now. I'm just focused on showing up for those clients in the best way that I can every day, and knowing that that's enough. And then the success that happens on top of that, if it ever were to happen, would be like a cherry on top.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also like we have an amazing job where we get to help people make their music, you know?
Right.
And it exists forever. You know, we're like helping people get something out of themselves that'll exist forever. It's pretty awesome we get to do it.
Of course. And staying present in that that thankfulness, or that that awareness of how fucking cool it is, you know. And that for me is like, in doing this for longer and longer, I'm sure you have this too, it's like some days you're tired or whatever, and I have to pinch myself and be like, dude, I'm walking into a studio that's like mine. Or like you're walking into this badass mix room with these PMCs and all this cool gear, you know what I mean? That's a pretty incredible thing, you know.
Easy to remember now when we're having like a nice combo about it. Harder to remember when you're like,
in the weeds.
Revision 50.
Right.
You know, like,
for sure.
Oh man.
For sure.
Yeah. It's good to keep in mind.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, thank you so fucking much for doing this. This is really fun.
So much.
I'm so excited to share this interview with all of y'all. Thank you, Adam, for taking the time.
Thanks, John.
Awesome. Dude, that was fun, dude.